Welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Once again, laptopless.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater, who is not here today. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. Go check out our interview with Mark Dara. Go check out Iron Lung Review, patreon.com/the Gaming Discourse, where you can help support the channel. And there's a bunch of stuff there that I would recommend checking out. Working on some stuff right now. We've got some news, we got some updates, and we've been playing games.
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I rolled real credits on Hades.
Really?
Real credits on Hades, yes.
Okay.
And I don't care anymore. I'm just going to tell you.
I'm okay with Hades spoilers.
Okay,
if you're not okay with Hades spoilers, jump ahead 5 minutes.
The entire goal of Hades is to escape Tartarus and
yes.
Asphodel and all of that, Elysium, and you're leaving because you're trying to get to Olympus to meet up with your cousins, and they're all trying to help you, and they want you to come up and party with them. Along the way, you find out some intrigue, and you find out who your real mother is, and you find out she's alive, and so now your goal is to leave and try to find your mom. Mm-hmm. So after you beat it the first time, you find her, and your mother is Persephone. And once you find her, you start to run into more new people as time goes on, and you run into people like Demeter, who is Persephone's mom, and you run into Thanatos and a bunch of other people. You keep playing the game, you keep passing it, and the story starts to unfold itself, and like Greek mythology, it's Persephone left Olympus to go down to Hades, become Hades' wife, not by force, not by choice, depending on the story you're reading.
Sure. Yeah.
But she leaves the underworld. Persephone leaves the underworld and goes into the mortal realm in between both Olympus and the underworld, and nobody knows where she's at. Demeter, her mom, thinks she's dead, and so it's an eternal winter, like on the surface.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you start to learn that, and you have lots of lore. So you start to beat the game more and more, or you finish your runs each time, and each time you get a new snippet, a conversation with Persephone. But as Zagreus, you're not allowed to be on the mortal realm.
On Earth or whatever.
Right, yeah. So eventually you have X amount of time to speak with her, and then you just die.
And then you die, and Zagreus wakes back up. Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. So I was given a hint by a coworker who was like, you got to do it 10 times. You got to beat it 10 times.
Oh wow, okay. I mean,
okay, yeah.
Close to that.
So I got the 9th time, and I was like, I think this is my 10th time, and I got to Hades. And when you get to Hades, you usually have some banter, and then you start to fight him. And then this time I got there was very light banter, but it was an admittance of things on both sides of Hades and Zagreus. And Hades just goes, you know what? Just go. I don't care. You're going to do what you want. Just go. And you don't have to fight him. He just lets you go.
I thought that would eventually happen.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of Hades. That's sort of his attitude, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And it always seems like there's a lot of times where it seems like he's about to do that. And then he's like, anyway. And then he takes off his cloak or whatever. Yeah. And you're like, okay, time to go.
Yeah, yeah. So
interesting.
The last time he lets you go. You go up all the way up to Persephone's place. Once you get there, she's like, well, I'm ready. And you're like, what? She's like, I'm coming back with you. And it's like, whoa, okay, great. So, and he's like, well, how are you going to get there? Because in order to get to the underworld, you got to die, And she's like, oh, we have a friend. And then the camera moves over and Charon's right there. And he tips
really?
He tips his hat. Because you find out that everyone in the underworld loved Persephone. Nobody hated her. Everybody loved her, including Charon. And so Charon just tips his hat, and you both get on the boat and you go down River Styx. And as you go down, credits start to roll. And then a new song plays with Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah.
Because eventually, as you go along, you can break their contract so that they can meet each other again.
Yeah.
And same with other characters. Very rewarding, as you continuously go through the game. But once you get back down, not everything gets explained. But there now has to be a reason for you to keep playing, keep leaving. And so it gets to the point where if Olympus finds out Persephone is still alive, there's going to be hell broken loose, figuratively speaking. And so Persephone and Hades' plan is for Zagreus to just keep breaking out in order to
make it look
to give the guys that
to give all the gods on Olympus,
yes,
to give them the guys to make them think that nothing's changed.
Right.
Zagreus is still trying to break out.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
But secondly, it's also a way because Hades goes, you know what? Every time you broke out, it's because we had a weakness somewhere in our security. So you keep doing that. You keep finding security weaknesses for us, and then we can, So that's basically how that. I don't think anything else is wrapped up still because there's friendships to max out. There's other threads to like close up, but all in all, I quote unquote beat Hades.
Awesome.
And it was more than satisfying, and I have spent so much time on that game, and I don't regret one bit, and every character is incredible, and I want more of it. And I know Supergiant's never going to do a sequel, and I don't even think there needs to be a sequel, but it was truly a remarkable game.
I feel like whatever they do next has to be the way that the dialogue is done, the way that if they don't do Zagreus again, if they don't do some kind of narrative sequel or something, if they do something completely different, I feel like the dialogue system has to be carried over. Sure. Because that was so much a part of pushing yourself through Hades was the little tiny pieces of dialogue and the little characterizations that you got here and there with all the different characters.
Yeah.
So
everything paid off, which is awesome. But Supergiant, this was the first game that they did early access for, so I think that helped them a lot, whereas all their other games, they just kind of released them, and they were still excellent. So I know they'll do great work on their next game. So I beat Hades, and then I moved on finally to Ghostwire Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
And I've only played about 2 or 3 hours of it, but already I can tell you that I'm greatly enjoying it. Greatly enjoying it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the aesthetics of the game. Of course, modern-day Tokyo, overrun by demons, and the gameplay itself is pretty standard first-person shooter-esque type game because your character, he's performing, I guess, seals. So he's kind of shooting with his 2 fingers, but they're essentially like shrine seals that he's throwing at.
So is it kind of similar to like BioShock? Like you're shooting things out of your hands?
Yeah, well, that's like your main ability. You have like 30 shots, like they're like spirit shots, and then eventually you'll get a bow and arrow. You get a bow and arrow very early on, but the aesthetic is probably its strongest point. It does a lot because things become haunted, or like certain areas are ruled over by whatever demon or ghost is there. It does one of my favorite things that Evil Within does and Control does is that your perspective on like the hallway you're in will shift, or something will happen to that effect. So like as you're walking down, the walls just like immediately fill with like artwork, or one of my favorite parts was it basically looked like you were walking on a skywalkway, and it was glass on the bottom, glass on the walls, and it was just city all over. Like it just like you were in the hallway, and then all of a sudden it just went to like city. And
interesting.
So it would screw with your mind that way, and I that gets me giddy because I just love that effect. It's so trippy. But all in all, so far, it's kind of just a standard open world game. It does it well. There's nothing offensive about it. But like I said, the aesthetic and just seeing these really, really neat, unique type of demons and creatures, they're very cool. You have Japanese folklore, they're called tengu, but they're kind of humanoid birds.
Okay.
And they have like long snouts and stuff. And so they're flying around, but they're not.
Oh, were those in Resident Evil? Was that what those were?
No,
not really.
There might be inspiration, but no, not specifically those guys. But you can, like they're flying around the city, and you can just grapple onto them, and like that's how you'll get on top of buildings and stuff.
Okay.
But they don't hurt you or anything; they're just hanging out. So it's really cool because they do have that kind of. They're a good spirits and they're evil spirits, like,
some
so to speak. So
some
like,
are mean, some are peaceful.
yeah, like you're like when you go to shops, the spirits are cats, like they're floating in air,
awesome.
and they're like, "Hey, how's it going? What do you want to buy?" And so and you can pet animals, you can pet cats
Do they
and dogs.
literally talk like that?
No,
they sound
don't.
like Bob from Bob's Burgers.
Hey,
you want to buy anything? Did you look at the burger of the day?
I've done some side quests which were very cool, very fun. But the story has something to do with your sister, and of course something special is about her, and the main demon is trying to get her, and very ho-hum, but
Sure.
The game itself is enjoyable enough that it's something I can get into. So
Awesome.
that's it.
I'm glad. I hope you continue to enjoy it.
No, I will.
So I lost my first game in MLB today.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned up the difficulty, and I lost 3-0 today. So I was annoyed.
Look, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say you can't win them all,
Hey.
man.
I don't want to hear it. All right, no. But no, it's fine. I want to tweak the difficulty to the point where it is somewhat of a challenge. And somebody commented on the latest podcast saying, the sliders, try those out. And I tried the sliders out, and that made it better. And so I think I've gotten there. I think I changed I upped the difficulty, but I didn't change the sliders. So I went up by like 2.5, like a difficulty and a half. So then I lost the game, changed the sliders around. There is an option for changing the way balls and strikes are called. But I don't know if it works or not, because there are still pitches where I hit the strike zone and they're called balls. And man, like it may not seem like it. The difference between a 2-1 count and a 1-2 count is massive. It's just a huge difference that casual baseball fans or people that don't care about baseball may not understand how massive of a difference a 2-1 versus a 1-2 count is, right? And that's one strike. That's just
Two
one
strikes,
pitch.
one ball.
Yeah, 2 strike, 1 ball, or 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Yeah.
That's one pitch that decides that, right? So when you're playing a video game and you're like, okay, I'm gonna throw this, then I'm gonna throw the fastball here, and it's like ball, even though you hit right where you should. It's just, it pisses you off, man. And listen, robo-umps are coming, and I don't care. I am fully in the camp of robo-umps sometime soon.
I mean, they already have the camera's already set.
Yeah,
right
it's so
there.
awkward too. It's so awkward when you're watching a ball game and there's a pitch that's clearly a strike, and the play-by-play guys don't just want to destroy the umpires. They're like, and Angel Hernandez calls that a ball, a little bit inside, but of course we're unofficial. Like much restraint, so much restraint to just, what the hell kind of call is that? No, but anyway, so that's all I want to say about baseball. So I started God of War New Game Plus. And man, I didn't forget how good God of War is, but there's so many little things that are, I did talk about this last week, but there's so many little things that that I just don't remember. That I'm glad I'm going through and I'm playing it again to experience. Like when there's a side quest about a guy who led a couple. He had like a crew, like a pirate crew.
Yes.
And he led them to loot, and they ended up dying. And Kratos turns it into a lesson about leadership. And Kratos has a line, and he says, all leaders make mistakes. The best ones take responsibility for them. And I was like, that's a hell of a quote right there. Mm-hmm. That's a Jean-Luc Picard quote coming from Kratos, which is great. But like, it's funny because you were talking about Hades and God of War, because they deal with mythology, have a lot of similar themes. But like, I love how God of War is written in such a way that not everything makes logical sense, and I love that. Like the serpent, right?
No, the world serpent.
The world serpent. Jorgomander, I think is its name. You have no idea how anything could go about fighting this thing, because it's so huge that it's like you'd be throwing. I mean, there's just nothing you could do to it. But Thor fought it, or is going to fight it. You're not 100% sure on that one.
Right.
But Thor isn't like massive. Thor's the side of Kratos, relatively speaking. So how does that work? But it's not about logically making sense, though. The idea is that it's just these myths that like transcend time and space and maybe even like human comprehension. Thalmor, the giant that you find who fell,
who's frozen?
And he is his head was pierced by he was stabbed in the head by his own chisel, right?
Yeah.
They tell the story of Thalmor, and it's like Thalmor just lived in this world, and you're like, but how?
Yeah.
There's no how could he walk around? He'd destroy all these towns and villages.
What did he eat?
Yeah, what did he eat? But the point is, none of that stuff is supposed to matter because it's this mystical, mythological world, and I love that it's written that way because it makes it feel, like a myth. It makes it feel like you're experiencing a story that's told orally, that's sort of passed down,
right? Where
things don't always make 100% sense, but it's more about the emotions, the lessons, how these people go about explaining the world. And I love that so much. And it's everywhere in the game. At one point they talk about Thalmor building a wall to keep the Aesir, who are the like Odin and Thor, those gods, out of the giants, the realm of the giants, which is Jotunheim, right? And it's like a wall. Like a wall's not going to stop Odin. But again, it's not like the logic of it isn't the point. The point is it's the separation. It's the idea that they're trying to like keep each other out and they don't like each other and things like that. The world is fracturing. It's such a brilliantly, it's such a brilliant way of handling it. Of just saying, this is the way the world is, we're leaning into the mythology of it, and even though it doesn't always make sense logically, that's not the point, and we don't care.
Yeah.
And Control did that, because Control took a lot of inspiration from like David Lynch. So Control, things don't always make 100% logical sense in Control, but that's the point. It's about the surrealness of it all. And I love that about God of War so much. There have been a couple times where I've recorded like little conversations between Atreus and Kratos that I think are really just neat, tiny pieces of dialogue. There's one point where you find a soul eater, which are it's like a stone monster. And if it kills somebody, that person's soul disappears. They don't go to Valhalla. They don't go. They're just gone forever. They disappear from the 9 realms. So Atreus is afraid of it, and Kratos. So Kratos is like encroaching upon it. And before you get there, Atreus says, "Are we going to fight that thing?" And Kratos is like, "Yes, because you are afraid of it." And it's a really. And when you take into consideration that Kratos knows more about Atreus than Atreus knows about himself, and that he's not just mentoring him because he's his son, which that's something I'll talk about here in a second. He's also mentoring him because he knows Atreus is a god. He knows gods are horrible.
Yeah. He
knows he needs to make him better, right? Mm-hmm. Because all around them, the destruction of this land is because Odin he's selfish, he's conniving, he's just evil, he's greedy, and where once was this amazing land where all these different races lived in harmony, Odin has just one by one sort of destroyed everything.
We just can't get away from Bobby Kotick.
We just can't get away from Bobby Kotick. Although I don't like I don't know, Bobby Kotick wouldn't be, because Odin is at least like built, he could probably bench his own weight. Bobby Kotick, I don't know. That's a different visualization. Okay, so the thing about Atreus, so yesterday or last week I was like, oh my god, I missed the point. Atreus is Odin's son. I'm stupid. Okay, and move forward. Okay, but now I don't know if that's true, because I went and I googled it a few times. And I found a lot of people on multiple subreddit threads saying, no. Cory Barlog has said in interviews that Atreus is Kratos' son, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I could have researched this further, but I'm at a point now where it's like, it really doesn't matter. I know the two possibilities, that intrigue is interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like my initial thought is the correct one, because in what is one of the most important scenes in the game. Sorry. My initial thought meaning the thought that I learned last week. So initially I was incorrect. Initially, Kratos is not the blood father of Atreus. That's incorrect. What I think is correct is that Atreus is descended from Odin, right? Okay. But in one of the most important scenes in the game, Athena appears, and Kratos has to get the Blades of Chaos, and Athena says, "You're lying to yourself. You're not a husband. You're not a," she says a couple things, and then she ends on father, and Kratos stops for a split second, right? So that's the biggest hint. She's not speaking thematically, metaphorically, like you're not a father, aka you're a bad father. It's no, literally you are not a father, right? And that's what he's sort of lying about. So yeah, I think my roundabout journey to a somewhat obvious plot point has ended, but I'm not going to look further into it, even if there are people saying that there are answers out there. Because not knowing is sort of part of the fun. Yeah,
because I'm thinking about it too. Because you've already beaten it, so we can just talk about it. But at the end, when you do find out who Loki isn't there a line where Kratos specifically says like, "I named you Atreus, but your mother wanted to name you something else"?
It might be that line where he says wanted to name you Loki.
Yeah. That's an insinuation that is his dad. I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
One other thought I have is I think so. Odin's goal throughout a lot of, and the reason why so much of the world is destroyed is because Odin is trying to figure out how to end and how to stop an inevitability, which is Ragnarok, right? So he's doing all these really selfish, mean things. He's sort of driving a stake through the heart of the world to try and figure out if he can stop Ragnarok. I think one of the reasons, and I think this will be in Ragnarok, but one of the reasons why he wants to find Kratos it's both in relation to Atreus, but also because if Kratos got to Midgard from the realm of Greek mythology, then Odin's thought process is Kratos could probably get me out.
That's a good
right. And I could escape Ragnarok by way of reverse engineering whatever Kratos did to get here, right? I don't know the God of War story, so I don't know if it's explained how Kratos gets to Midgard.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so, and again, I love that. Mythology, it doesn't need to have a logical answer. No. Kratos traveled, and he happened upon this new realm, something, right? I love that. So I think Odin is trying to find him because Odin thinks, I'm gonna beat the crap out of this guy and force him to tell me how to get out of here so I can escape Ragnarok and be on my way to some new realm where I can instill my will and I can rule these other realms that apparently exist.
It's very neat because when you sit there and really think about it, it's like Greece was its own thing.
Yeah.
And and as soon as you exit that, you go into the realm of, I forgot where Norse mythology is.
Oh, well, Northern Europe or whatever.
Yeah, right. You go there and it's like, if I cross and go south, then you're in Egyptian.
Sure.
That's neat to think about because you do enter that room where you do find Egyptian.
Yeah, Tyr has traveled.
Yeah, right. Egyptian and possibly Aztec and stuff like that. It's really interesting to think about. Yeah. I mean, not that they'll do an entire series based off every one, but
that would be a slight worry. Is the way that they have it written right now it's really cool. I could see it ending up kind of silly, where it just feels like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know what I mean? Where they're just these are all these heroes and they're from these planets. Where it has like a really grounded, simple explanation. That would feel silly. They're from the planet Egypt and they're from the planet Greece and they're from the planet fucking Norway or whatever. That would feel silly. So yeah, but I don't think they'll do that. Although it would be, but at the same time, it would be awesome to have Kratos have run-ins with other gods or something like that from different realms.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that may be why the second game is called Ragnarok, because Ragnarok happens, and then maybe Kratos and Atreus escape Midgard, Odin dies, everybody dies or whatever, and they escape back to the realm of Greek mythology or something like that. I don't know. But again, it would be silly if they escaped and like dropped into Egyptian mythology, and it's like, well, looks like we're right at it again. Gotta go fight Ra. It'd be like, that kind of feels silly.
It would very much so. I don't want that.
But anyway, so yeah, I'm having a ton of fun with God of War. And yeah, you ready for the ad?
Yeah.
You look like you're about to say something.
No, when you said when you're talking about all the like different like worlds, and then you said Marvel Universe, like it made me think of, for some very odd reason, there's this game called The Conduit on the Wii that was a first-person shooter, and it dealt with like near future. There's high-tech stuff, like aliens come down and you're trying to defend against them, and it has something to do with like Washington, like you're in Washington when it happens and whatnot. And then there was the second game. I don't know what happened because I didn't play them. All I know is that it's controversial because at the end of the second game, when you're like, when all hope is lost, kind of like a portal opens up, and Abraham Lincoln and George Washington just step out with this like armor, like they have like futuristic armor on and guns, and they're like,
have to look this up.
And it's funny because Abraham Lincoln's still wearing his fucking hat. So I had this quick like multiverse thing.
We need to understand something about Abraham Lincoln real quick. If you bring in Abraham Lincoln into your universe, it doesn't make it better. As great of a president as he was, Star Trek tried that.
Oh, right.
That's one of the dumbest episodes ever. Right. The one where Abe Lincoln and Kirk are like trying to figure out, and Abe Lincoln's like, what the hell's going on? 4 seconds ago I was fighting the South, and now I'm on some planet. Oh yeah, I can handle this. Like, come on.
No existential crisis.
Yeah, no, it's like, slow down, Turbo. Anyway, so don't add Abe Lincoln. That we definitely don't want God of War. We don't want him meeting up with Abe and George. Okay, person the ad.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
EA is looking to sell or merge. A report by Dylan Byers writing for Puck, which we'll talk about here in a second. EA has been pursuing a sale with companies like Amazon, Apple, Disney, and NBC Universal. Reading from the story, quote, several sources familiar with these talks say EA has been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Microsoft Activision deal. Others say that EA is primarily interested in a merger arrangement that would allow Andrew Wilson, who is the CEO, to remain as CEO of the combined company. Puck is a tech reporting site. I think it's relatively new.
Yeah, I never heard of them.
Yeah, but they have writers from the Atlantic and I think the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. Anyway, as Eurogamer pointed out, this comes as 100 people may lose their jobs due to EA cutting its customer service staff in Austin and Galway, Ireland. EA said the job cuts would reduce complexity and increase efficiency, flexibility, and scalability. What do you think, sir? Is Electronic Arts, I don't know, are they as exciting a venture to you?
I don't know. I wonder why they're selling or merging. I mean, they're a company who I feel can stand on their own without any problems. So I don't know why they would find the need to do this. And I'll hold that part. And then the second part is I wonder why Xbox or Sony isn't in this conversation either. Because we are talking about Amazon, Apple, Disney, or NBC Universal. And then, or at least those are the ones that we listed here, or that were listed. But then I started thinking about, well, Amazon, Disney, and Apple. Apple less of the three, well, still up there, but Disney and Amazon especially, It's all about that money.
Yeah, and that would make sense for Amazon.
And that would make sense for Amazon, and that would help
them.
That would help propel them even further into the gaming industry, which they so want to do.
And they have not been able to do.
No.
Lost Ark, they published Lost Ark, they didn't develop it.
Right.
And I don't think anything they have developed has been super duper. It has not been the success that they were hoping they would get right out of the goddamn gate.
Yeah, so I mean that's a two birds one stone. They get EA, and not only that, they have all the EA franchises.
Yeah,
which is a no brainer, and they absolutely can afford it, no problem. Apple is after the money as well, but they kind of have this. They're very specific.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm not an expert in Apple and how they run their business and stuff like that, but it just doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like the type. It feels more like an Amazon thing to dump a bunch of money into just gobbling up Electronic Arts. Right. That feels like an Amazon thing to do.
Yeah.
The rest of the companies, I don't know, but Apple, I don't know, they've got their game thing that they seem to like.
Yeah, they have Apple Arcade, which does well, and of course they are one of the biggest worldwide, mobile.
They have
install base. Yeah, their install base is the biggest. So that would be good for them, especially with the mobile games and loot boxes and microtransactions. Yeah. It all goes hand in hand, and that is a great place for EA to be. But I don't know. Amazon seems like the best fit.
It seems like the fit that makes the most sense.
Overall, that makes the most sense. Yeah. Apple, to an extent, makes sense because, like I said, the mobile stuff. But as far as the console games go, I don't know where that would fit for Apple. Because they don't have a console. They have, of course, their PC.
And I don't even know if they'd be interested in that because it's not like it's not what they do. Mm-hmm. They're not a gaming company. You know, someone at the Genius Bar may say, "Yeah, we do gaming," and everyone would say, "Okay, that's fine." But no,
that's nice. Yeah.
No. Okay. So I think what's interesting about EA is how they do one thing well, and that's FIFA. And by FIFA, I mean other sports games where they sell loot boxes, right? Mm-hmm. Other than that, I think if we made a list of other big EA IPs, we would have a lot of mismanaged IPs. Battlefield. I would argue Battlefield has been mismanaged. Mm-hmm. Star Wars. How do you screw up Star Wars? Of Star Wars video games?
By not making any.
There you go. And that was Electronic Arts. They had this game called Titanfall that was really popular. They made a free-to-play shooter out of it, and I guess that's been pretty successful. So maybe, depending on your definition of success and mismanage, you may say that's half failure and half a success.
They have a lot of dormant series that they can use.
Yeah, so when I look at in BioWare's been one that, like, they've struggled the past decade or so, you know? So when you look at buying Electronic Arts, you get all these IPs and you get, you know, their loot box game that happens to, you know, have a soccer mini game inside of it. But I wonder if that actually excites anybody, or I don't know, because you're buying them for the loot boxes, right? Because I don't think you're going to purchase Electronic Arts and say, okay, now we can reap the benefits of Battlefield or BioWare. Right. One, because they're not, you know, those games aren't making a gajillion dollars, and two, because they've mismanaged the hell out of it because Electronic Arts is a bad company. So yeah, I don't know. I find this interesting. I think I would like to know how this got started, because if it's just, hey, Activision made money, why can't we? I think that's probably pretty likely. And off the top of my head, I would wager, and I don't know this, and I know it's probably not that difficult to look up, but I would wager that FIFA probably brings in more money than Call of Duty. Maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to say maybe. But I feel like FIFA is global video game.
Yeah, sure, yeah, globally. Yeah, so, I'd probably say so globally, and then
Madden that, here, Madden's
NBA,
the same thing.
NBA.
Do they have an NBA
title? Because NBA, yes, yeah, they. Oh no, I'm sorry, 2K. I'm thinking 2K. Wow.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
They used to NBA Live, right?
Yeah, and then
I don't remember what it was.
it turned into NBA Live, and then very shortly NBA Elite, and then it went back to Live.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, 2K makes a lot of money because they have the VC, the currency.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of money. So yeah, I forgot about that.
But anyway, so yeah. If I'm looking to purchase a game company and I look at Electronic Arts and I get into talks with them, a couple questions I'm going to ask them. Of course, I'm not an executive, but one of the questions I would ask is, hey, are you going to mismanage the hell out of BioWare, or are you going to let BioWare make BioWare games? Because if that's the case, I'll buy the hell out of EA. But if not, and you're just shitting microtransactions and loot boxes out, then
your laurels,
then I don't care. Embracer seems to be ready to make games in their Q4 and full year financial report. Embracer Group spoke about adding studios like Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal, and IPs like Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, and Legacy of Kain, saying, quote, "The announcement got an overwhelming and positive response. We see a great potential not only in sequels, but also in remakes, remasters, spin-offs, as well as transmedia projects across the group. We expect the transaction to close in the July-September period." You gotta love how these things are written. We expect the transaction to close between July and September. That's all you gotta say. Jesus. Anyway, not to dunk on Embracer Group and how they write corporate statements. Okay. So I wanted to say something about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I feel like there are moments where big video game companies have like a moment of a really transparent moment, right? So one example would be when Square Enix was first unveiling Avengers, right? And they had the people on the stage at E3 or whatever it was. And the people said, "We're proud to announce that there will be no loot boxes." And what did the crowd do? Did the crowd boo? Did they show indifference? The crowd went wild, right? Okay, that's a moment of transparency, because the person that wrote that script was not a director. The person that wrote that script and that made that script okay is probably a collection of executives somewhere in Square Enix. And they understood that players don't like the concept of loot boxes. And so they wrote that in as a benefit to launching Avengers. Now, I think Avengers ended up adding loot boxes, but that's not the point, right? The point is they were being honest about something by manipulating the audience that way, right?
Right.
They're being honest and transparent about what they know players want and don't want, right? So here, I think we have a moment where I would love to know if Embracer Group understands why people were excited that they bought these IPs, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but do you know why? Because it's not because people want an always online mass multiplayer Tomb Raider. You know what I mean? It's like, these are IPs that you could do very well with, but don't try and, make a looter shooter out of this or something like that. Sure. So when you say that you have all these different ideas for like remakes and remasters and spinoffs, that's great, but I don't know. And I don't think, it's not that I don't trust or anything like that Embracer Group. It's just, I hope we're on the same page here about why people are excited that these IPs were acquired. Because those are all really good ideas, but they're not going to make you they may not be as lucrative as something like what Square Enix tried to do with Avengers, even if Avengers failed. Does that make sense?
Does make sense. Yeah.
Are you sure? Because you have a really big smile.
No, it does. It does. Well, it does make sense. What you were saying makes sense. I think, and I may be reaching a bit here when it comes to like trying to misconstrue your words, how your response is to the games that EA was not making for Star Wars is a bit hypocrite. Like,
how so?
Because now we're in a position where Embracer's like, yeah, all these like Legacy Kains, all these things, we're gonna make a shit ton of them. Like we're doing it. But now you're like, well, wait a minute. hold on, don't like.
Well, no. Here, let me defend myself.
Okay.
All right. Before we have a sports radio throwdown.
Sure.
No.
I don't think we will.
I think we're in agreement. It's just I did a poor job explaining myself. I am fine with these people with Embracer Group milking the crap out of these games, right? Just because you milk something doesn't necessarily mean they're bad products.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I would have been fine with it if EA made 2 Star Wars games a year, right?
Yeah.
If those Star Wars games were good, whatever. But the problem is that they didn't do that. And in my head, the 2 scenarios that sucked were either they don't make games or they make dumb microtransaction selling games, right? Okay, so with Embracer Group, I would love it if they started pumping out Tomb Raiders, if they started pumping out Deus Ex, an original Deus Ex remake. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But if they try to do something where they incorporated live service mechanics and stuff like that, that's what I'm saying. That's where things go wrong.
Sure.
Is you've got these good IPs, people are excited because these IPs are single player, finite stories, they have sequels, they have long legacies, they have interesting characters, all this stuff. They are not multiplayer, live service, long monetization tail IPs. Now this is a jaded opinion because this is what happens in the games industry. So that's all I'm saying is I hope they understand why people are excited. People are just like with Square Enix. Square Enix knew people don't like loot boxes.
Yeah.
Even though they sell loot boxes. See, they're the hypocrites, not me. But anyway, because I would be fine. Like an remake of the original Tomb Raider. I think that'd be amazing.
That already happened, buddy.
Did it?
Yes, it was called Tomb Raider Anniversary on PS3 and Xbox 360.
When?
This was back in like 2008, 2009.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
How about Tomb Raider 2?
Well, a remake of 2? Yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Take that to the bank.
I get your jadedness. I'm just looking at all the subsidiaries of Embracer Group, and I don't think we have anything to worry about. Because
You're right.
Besides one of them, every single one of them, I don't think I can name very many. THQ Nordic. I don't know any games from them that.
If you told me the games, I would know them. Did they?
No, I know the games. They did the Darksiders games. They did.
Did they do the Destroy All Humans remake?
I believe they did. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like off the top of my head, for what I know, THQ Nordic, most of their games are like complete single player.
You're right.
No, Saber Interactive. 2 of them. Crystal Dynamics is another, and Gearbox is another. Like those guys make loot.
Yeah, and the Gearbox is sort of looter shooter because Borderlands, but Borderlands is its own thing. I'd say it is sort of distinct from
Aspire, which is doing the KOTOR remake.
Oh, that's right.
And they're doing,
they have Aspire.
Yeah.
Wow.
Square Enix Montreal, Eidos Montreal.
God,
Koch Media.
Coke Media.
Coke Media. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that's what it.
Yeah, it's fine because that's how I read it when I read it too sometimes. But they also have 4A Games that made Metro Exodus. I don't know if they own 4A Games or if they own a publisher. I don't know how that works. But I think they're up the line somehow from Metro Exodus, and Metro Exodus has sold really well. So anyway, so you are correct in pointing out that they don't seem like a company that would take these and then try and craft some bullshit live service thing from them, right?
They
I
could.
think you're correct. They could, but if you look at their track record, I think yes, you are correct. That doesn't seem like they would do that. So, is there anything you want to touch on?
No, I just the fact that I'm excited that about their response, because it is kind of, once again, I'll come back to Star Wars. It's like that, long stretch of time. It's like, when are we gonna get new Star Wars stuff? New Star Wars, and then Disney got it, and then so have all the Star Wars you want. Like, more than half of it is not great, but we're getting Star Wars
just
stuff now.
Something.
So it's like, yeah.
Not all the Star Wars games from the early 2000s were amazing.
No,
but you got the
late
Battlefronts.
90s, yeah.
You got the Jedi Order, whatever it was called. You got the KOTORs. You got The
Republic Commando.
Republic Commando. Yeah, we just listed like 10 games that are all really good. Yeah. You know? So, and not everyone's a banger.
And those overshadow the bad ones. Like
exactly.
By far.
You don't remember the bad Star Wars games like Jedi Power Battles. I don't know if that really is a bad Star Wars game. Star Wars Obi-Wan. I don't remember if that was a good or bad one.
It was all right.
No. Okay.
It was all right.
But yeah, anyway, I think so. Yeah. I would say embrace your group. Off the top of my head, I think they understand that, right? And again, you look at other remakes. I feel like remakes are a successful thing right now. And the other important fact to note is that they're not cynical. That's not necessarily true in like the film industry, right?
Right.
You're either going to remake something, and it's like that's kind of cynical because it's a lack of creativity, it's a lack of risk taking or whatever. But you look in video games and it's like, no, it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because Resident Evil 2 is still good 15 years later.
Surprisingly.
But you just update the graphics a bit. You remake it. You keep the structure and the core the same. Yeah. It's a brand new game, but it's the same game. You sell it. It's like, it's amazing. It's great.
Baby, you got yourself stew going.
There you go. Okay, 2 quick updates. Raven Software has officially voted to unionize. The vote was 19 yes to 3 no. They can now bargain for a contract, though that could take some time. On a related note, as first reported by Bloomberg, U.S. Labor Law Board prosecutors, I have this written incorrectly. U.S. Labor Board prosecutors say Activision Blizzard illegally threatened staff and enforced a social media policy that violated workers' collective action rights. So, of course, obligatory.
Filthy human.
Fuck Bobby Kotick.
Filthy human.
Fuck Activision Blizzard. There we go. I have it written here that U.S. Labor Board prosecutors illegally threaten staff. You will not organize. I don't care.
Delete your Facebook.
Okay, and then Emma Maho has filed another gender discrimination suit against Sony. Some background. Emma Maho filed a couple months ago a gender discrimination suit against Sony alleging widespread gender discrimination, saying she was fired for bringing these things up. Her suit was previously thrown out by a judge, but not with malice. Again, we're not lawyers. Thrown out, but said if you can rewrite this and make it a little more focused, we can do it again. Her new suit makes mostly the same claims, but the scope is smaller. It's no longer national, but limited to women who worked under the vice president level at PlayStation's California locations. And I think it's like San Diego, San Francisco, maybe a couple more. Okay, is there anything you want to say before we hit up Tidbits?
No, I'm good.
All right. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the Tidbits.
You know, in Tidbits, I was thinking of, you already did it for me today, but adding like occasional financial news.
I would love that, man.
Depending on games.
Financial news.
Not quite, NPD level stuff, but
not Matt Piscatella level.
Right.
Not Matty Ice level.
But thanks for the extra tidbit. In other financial news, Resident Evil Village sales has passed 6 million. This is according to a press release, reading straight from the release itself. Quote, digital content gave a solid performance with global unit sales of Resident Evil Village reaching 6.1 million units, while sales of Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin topped 1.5 million units worldwide. In addition, the sales growth of catalog titles such as Monster Hunter World Iceborne and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard contributed to revenue supported by their consistent popularity.
Do you think that... Okay, so first of all, great. Second of all, horror games sell.
I'll always.
So shut up.
More so nowadays, man.
Yeah, people I don't want to hear it. They're remaking Dead Space. Horror games sell. If you're an executive that's like, horror games don't sell, shut up. You're not helping.
You can thank Twitch for that, actually. You can thank...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can very much thank
the
Twitch
Scream
for that.
Tubers.
Yep.
And that's at Freddy's, maybe.
And then that's not to, like, diminish the success of the original Dead Space games, the Outlast games, stuff like that, but... there are horror video games from the PS2 era and the PS1 era that are extremely expensive nowadays because...
I saw one at your store. I've seen a couple at your store.
I don't know which ones.
There was one for the PS4 that was a Japanese copy. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, White Day probably.
Yeah, White Day. And then there was one that was still in the original PS2 box I actually asked you about.
Fuck, I forgot. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Anyways, but yeah, just because the horror wasn't as widely bought back then, but now with the advent of YouTube and Twitch, people love to watch people get scared.
Yeah, which is great.
Very much so.
But I do wonder how much the remakes of Resident Evil have played into the success of 7 and 8, right?
Oh yeah.
And also, I wonder how much of the success, like, okay, this is legitimately a question. How much of it is due to Lady Dimitrescu? And I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm saying it literally.
Oh, I'm sure she contributed.
How much
a good
interest
amount.
because she became iconic,
Yeah,
right? And when you right now, if you were to talk Resident Evil characters, go.
Yeah.
People would probably, Pyramid Head, whatever. I don't know that guy's name. But how many? Sure, she's not in the game a whole lot, but like Lady Dimitrescu is one of the coolest, like creepiest characters. I think she's cooler than anything in Resident Evil 7. I didn't play 6. Definitely anything from Resident Evil 5. All I remember Resident Evil 5 is some guy in glasses jumping around. I don't know. But,
yeah, Wesker.
Yeah.
I think it had a large amount to do with the success of 8, but also the success of 7 as well, seeing as that it was a sequel to 7 in some regards.
Yeah, you're right.
But also, once again, I think we come back to the streaming aspect of it, because even before 7 and 8, the last game was 6, which was 2010, 2011, maybe.
Is it that long ago?
It was yeah, because 6 was on PS3 and 360.
Oh, okay.
So it was 2011, 2012. And so since then, of course, larger audience and also just social media, word of mouth. People love to hype others up on things. Look at Cyberpunk.
Sure. Yeah.
Without the marketing, without, just the general excitement of everybody, that game is a huge success. But Resident Evil is also just a established franchise that people enjoy the hell out of, whether it's good or not. Look at the live action movies. Have nothing to do with the series at all, but they're fun, dumb action flicks,
Maybe the most successful video game movies of all time.
Yeah. It is interesting because with Resident Evil, when it's good, it's very good. And when it's not great, it's definitely not great. But there are still people who find joy in it in some ways. I like all of them for the most part. I can definitely tell you that like some of them aren't good, but
You mean the Resident Evils?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The games
5.
themselves. But
Sorry.
I love 5. 5 is actually one of my favorites.
I know. I was about to kick Richard off the edge. I'm sorry. I said, Tyler, fuck you.
If you said 6 was a bad one, I'd be like, yeah, but I like it.
But 5, step too far.
Wait just a damn minute.
One thing I didn't see in that report, and I tried looking for it, I didn't see if they had an opinion on how Resident Evil 4 VR did.
I would like to hear that. I would like to hear if they do have an opinion on it.
I wonder if within the halls of Capcom, they're not like, that shouldn't have been a exclusive, because that game was damn good. That game was Game of the Year good. And yeah, like, with it being an exclusive, it's an exclusive on a headset with a huge market share, but it's also an exclusive.
Yeah.
And relatively speaking, that market share isn't that huge when you consider video games in general.
Comparatively, yes.
So, and how many people are willing to play a horror game in VR? Because it's already going to be creepier and whatnot. And it definitely is creepier. So there are those things.
To me, Facebook and Armature went, we'll give you X amount and we'll just do our own thing with this. And Capcom went, oh, okay, sure. Because they didn't develop it. Armature did.
Yeah, Armature did, yeah.
Yeah, so they basically just licensed it on Capcom as far as I'm concerned. So I'm sure Capcom thinks it's nice, but they had got the money for it up front, I'm sure.
Okay,
and then
I see
never
what
had
you're
to
saying.
think about it again.
That makes sense. But, okay, yeah. I think you're right.
But I don't know, because
That's a really good point.
I'm not on the business side or anything. But,
Sure.
But yeah, if they didn't exclusively like have hands on or develop it, then I don't see why reason they should care. I'm sure they do, but
that's an excellent
they're not
point.
seeing the money Facebook and Armature is. They already got theirs.
Yep. Excellent point.
I know. Kidding. So
Resident Evil 5 sucks. And you suck.
Sheva. So my tidbit is a bit of a long one and lots of quotes too. So I just think this is a very interesting story. Video game history is interesting altogether for me. But back in the 90s, Sega of America never told Japan that one of their games was a hit in the U.S. Of course, as time goes on, historians will find interesting stories inside of magazines and other obscure media or interviews. And this story came out of an issue of Die Hard Game Fan from 1994. And Masato Maegawa, the president of Developer Treasure, which they make a lot of really unique games, and they're still around to this day, was interviewed for the issue. And in it, he was notified of the popularity of the Sega Genesis game Gunstar Heroes. And this is a quote from the interview. Game Fan quoted, "Congratulations, Gunstar Heroes received our Game of the Year award for 1993. Treasure fans in the U.S. are waiting for a confirmation of Part 2. And then Masato said, quote, "Wow, thank you very much. I'm really glad. I didn't know that our game was so successful. Sega of America never told us. I can't believe that people in the U.S. want us to make a sequel. Once again, he said, Sega of America never told us that our game was popular in the U.S. So, of course, those in the thread that I got this information from were taken back by the interview and, of course, slightly offended. I would be, too. Later on, a user posted a screenshot of another interview in which Max Sonor, the only one apparently at Sega of America who liked Gunstar Heroes, recounted what Mike Latham, the producer of another Sega game, Eternal Champions, thought of it. And he said, quote, "I was last on the list. Clyde came to me, another coworker, and said, everyone else has turned this down. They don't want to work on it. They don't think it's going to sell well. It's up to you. So it's either you or it goes in the trash. So I put it in and I played it for about 2 minutes and I threw down the controller and I said, this is Game of the Year. Mike Latham, who was sharing a cubicle with me, stood up and said, Mac, don't say that. I turned that down. There's no way. I said, no, I can take it. This is Game of the Year. In hindsight, it seems that I was right, but at the time, I took so much fire for that comment. I can't explain it to you. The number of people that came by and said, Mac, why would you say such a stupid thing?"
Jeez.
Nowadays, Gunstar Heroes is hailed as one of the best shooters of the 16-bit era, and Eternal Champions is definitely low on that list, both in popularity and quality-wise.
Interesting.
So,
man, that stuff's fascinating.
Isn't it, though?
I love that kind of stuff.
It reminds me, because there's a lot... gaming has changed, obviously, but there's a very famous... There's two very famous... not interviews, but just blurbs from magazines. And one was of, I think it was a review on Alien Resurrection or Alien Trilogy, the very first game that introduced twin analog stick.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they're like, this is the stupidest fucking control scheme ever. like they basically trashed the game because of that control scheme. And they said it was like, it would never work. And it's just, you look back on that now and it's just like, what were they thinking?
Sure.
And then another one is very famous because it involves Castlevania, but it was like they put the Castlevania 64 graphics, like the 3D graphics, side by side with Symphony of the Night. And they were like, oh, look at stupid Sony's like dumb cartoon look like stuff. And look at the superior 3D graphics for Nintendo's Castlevania. And it's just like, Symphony of the Night was one of the greatest games of all time. And it's 2D, looks gorgeous to this day still. Right. And Castlevania 64 is like one of the worst Castlevanias. It's so interesting to look back on opinions or just get, candid responses from those who worked in the industry, because we don't get to hear it a lot. Absolutely. But
go ahead.
We don't get to hear it a lot besides from the figureheads.
Yeah,
like we're gonna know what Cory Barlog said, but are we gonna know what John Smith said, who worked as a QA? You know,
and a lot of times there's a lot of great tidbits from there.
Yeah, for sure.
A quick story that has to do with what you kind of were. This is about music, not games, but the person who reviewed Nevermind, the
Nirvana,
the Galaxy famous album from Nirvana. when they reviewed, and I think it was Nevermind, when they reviewed Nevermind for Rolling Stone, they didn't even mention Smells Like Teen Spirit.
I think I remember hearing this, right?
They went through the entire, it's famous. They went through, or it's I don't remember the person's name. Apparently they're still somewhat bitter about it if you try and talk with them or ask them about it.
I bet.
But I was, and it's not that I'm making fun of them, because I'm always terrified of doing something like that too, you know?
Yeah.
You just got to make your best judgment and live in the moment, whatever. But that's like the same kind of thing, is like, imagine listening through Nevermind for the first time and listening to It Smells Like Teen Spirit and thinking, not even worth mentioning, and just going on.
Skip.
Yeah. Okay. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Check out patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse so you can support us. And we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.